the significant downsides of jumping onto this without making sure you're in that very, very small percentage of cases where this might.
Okay, by the way, for children who aren't undergoing puberty yet, like, they aren't doing things to them. It's not like if a 5-year-old says, I think I'm a boy, and then all of a sudden it's like, can you refer to me as he? Is that wrong? Is that too much for you, Megyn Kelly? Because that would be the extent of it most likely at that age. I mean, puberty blockers are given to you before you start going through puberty. And then once you're going through puberty, you continue to take them. You don't get bottom surgery. Like, that's another thing that they keep lying about. I like, what would be the horrors and atrocities of validating your kid's gender because they asked you to? All right, let's see Megyn Kelly versus Megyn Kelly. I thought this was an interesting headline. Megyn Kelly defended trans rights on Fox News 6 years before trashing Fox News over a pro-trans segment. Big if true.
It's going to be chaos in our schools. The president, by the way, he threatens to take away funding.
Let's just have a back and forth on it. Let's just have a back and forth on it rather than just talking straight through. Because this is what the other side says. This is the reality. This is the reality of life in 2016 America, that we are now finally getting to the point where we recognize that there are trans women, trans men, trans girls, trans boys, and that they have been stifled and tortured in a way for so long that, yes, there may be some disruption in mainstreaming these kids and getting things to a place where they're accepted, but that it's for the greater good.
Megyn, the transgender population supposedly is around 0.3%. And by the way, every school district has handled the transgender children just fine. They make accommodations. We make accommodations in America for all types of students who come to school with all types of issues. Again, America is not going to stand for having their teenagers shower together or go to the bathroom together in elementary school. It's not going to happen. This will be the beginning.
Who in the world was ever saying that? That one's completely new to me. That sounds like a right-wing made-up strawman right there, where it's just like, hey, by the way, they're actually asking for us to have unisex showers in the bathrooms and stuff like that.
Of the end of public education as we know it. It's going to inflate the rolls quickly in private schools and homeschoolers. It's going to push school choice all across this nation.
Why? If you could answer my question, why? Why won't America?
The other thing that's really fucked up about what he just said there is that, like, he was trying to pass off that, like, well, this is a very small amount of people, so we shouldn't have to make accommodations. Like, would you apply that logic to anything else? Do you think that there should be, like, ramps to schools because the vast majority of children are not disabled and don't need to use them? But should that still exist? Should that be a thing?
Stand for that? Why is it, like, try to articulate
because
why
it goes against common sense, common decency, privacy, comfort, safety, the value system of people. And by the way, Megyn, this is not a partisan issue. In Houston, I helped fight back an ordinance that would have allowed men in ladies' rooms, and we defeated that ordinance in a Democrat city 2-1.
Allow men in the ladies'
Yeah, because of fear-mongering. I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess just a lot of fear-mongering. Just those same old talking points, right? Well, if you allow trans women into women's bathrooms, you know what'll happen. They might sexually assault biological women, and we can't have that, even though statistically that doesn't really happen. In fact, trans women seem to be the ones who are at the hands of being assaulted more often than not. So it might be fear-mongering to push my agenda, which is most likely going to be bigoted, but it makes you scared, doesn't it? The words I just said out loud.
White Republican Democrat will not
allow
accept
trans
this,
women in ladies' rooms.
Pardon?
The ordinance would have allowed men in the ladies' rooms, or it would have allowed trans women in the ladies' rooms?
No. Well, here's what people don't understand. When you pass these ordinances and these rules, particularly in the adult sector, it says any person, any man who feels like he's a transgender, he feels like he's a woman, can go in. They don't have to be dressed like a woman. They can be dressed like an ordinary man. And what this creates, Megyn, is a great loophole for all the sexual predators and sex offenders that if anyone Googles in their neighborhood, they'll be shocked of how many live around that area.
Why can't the sex offenders just, I mean, like...
The majority of sex offenders are cishetes. The vast majority. I don't see you putting an ordinance that says that, like, cishetes can't use bathrooms. They're not allowed anymore. Cishet men cannot go into the bathrooms because they may molest other men, or they may try to go into women's bathrooms too. We just have to ban them from all bathrooms out of fear for that happening.
A lot of sex offenders are men who molest men, who molest boys.
Sure.
Why is there an assumption that they need to sneak into the girls' room?
Well, and it could be vice versa, but Megyn, Look, I have 4 grandchildren and 2 children. I don't want an 8-year-old
Look, Megan, okay, most of my logic is crumbling before my very eyes, so I just want to now tell you a personal story and why this is important to me. I have kids, okay? I have kids, so checkmate, right?
Granddaughter walking into a bathroom with a 30-year-old man there. And no one else does. Anyone who has a grandmother, mother, a wife, a sister, a daughter, granddaughter,
what if that man
doesn't
looks
want
like
them
a
exposed
woman
to that.
and she would never know
Pardon?
that this is? What if that man looks like a woman
No,
and she
Megan,
would never know
you're
that
missing
this is?
And this is what
You don't get it. You don't get it. I hate trans people, okay? I hate them. I don't understand them. It scares me, and I just want to legislate them. What, can you just let me do this? Why are you pushing back? Am I not on? Is this Fox News? I thought I was on Fox. Is this? I'm not on MSNBC right now, am I?
people are missing.
I don't think I'm missing anything.
No, Megan, look.
Yeah, vice versa. Boys molesting men. Is that what he's talking about? Or vice versa. I mean, come on. There's an epidemic of boys molesting men right now.
Laws like this would allow any man at any time, dressed any way, to go into a bathroom.
Do you
because
have a
they
big
feel
problem
like a
with
woman.
that?
Pardon?
The point.
Yes, every single time he's like, "Wait, what? Why are you pushing back?" I thought this was just going to be like a softball talking piece. I was just going to be able to get here, spout a bunch of bigotry and hate, and then go about my day. Like, what's going on?
Is
I'm losing you a little bit.
Is this
I'm losing you a little bit. Megan, I sincerely don't understand what's happening right now. My brain cannot process getting any pushback on this, okay? Can you just agree with every single point I'm making about how trans people are evil so I can go back to my house to jerk off to trans porn? Can we just do that, please?
problem? Is this a problem with men
It will
intentionally
be if we
donning
allow
women's
men in
clothing
ladies'
so that
rooms
they
in
can
America,
sneak into
and
the...
we will have problems in our schools if we have boys and girls showering together. Megan, this goes against...
Who was ever asking for that? Who, that's not a talking point I've ever heard brought up. Like, we will not achieve equality until boys and girls are allowed to shower together in schools.
Just again, common sense and common decency.
Okay.
Women deserve privacy in the bathroom. They deserve safety in the bathroom. There's no need for this policy. This is a policy...
You gotta love when a dude is the one talking about what women deserve and need, you know? Just, hey... Come on, I'm a feminist, all right? Is anyone suspicious, by the way, and you should be, and especially TERFs, you should be exceptionally suspicious of this, all the same people who were anti-SJW, anti-third wave feminism, I'm talking your Sargon of Akkad style people, okay? Why are they all of a sudden talking about how they're really, really for the rights of women? They have to stand up for women's rights. They really care about this now for the first time ever. This is a key point.
A solution in search of a problem. There isn't a problem. Again, the president needs to stay out of local school districts.
Okay.
Let the parents, let the school board, let the superintendents decide these policies.
There you go.
I
That's where I'm
guarantee you,
gonna
in
pick it
every
up with
school
my
district
panel.
in America, and surely Texas, this would be turned down by 60, 70, 80% of the parents.
I
And,
got to
Megan,
leave it at that, sir,
this
because
is
I'm going to pick
another
up that debate with my
executive order
panel next. So,
circumventing
Lieutenant
Congress
Governor,
and the
thank you very
people.
much for being here. My apologies.
So that was the old one. Where's the new one? Okay, so here's the new one.
Journalist, and before I say host, I'm going to say welcome. Prime time, because her nickname, if it's not prime time, it should be prime time. Host of the Megyn Kelly Show. Megyn Kelly, my good friend, Megyn Kelly. Thank you so much for joining
Say Megyn Kelly one more time. Come on. If you say it 3 times, she disappears.
us, Megyn.
You didn't say the full name.
So wait a
this
minute.
whole
I'm
thing
so
about
happy for you. I just want to say congratulations to you before we get going. You deserve this.
Well, thank you so much, Megyn. You've always been a great friend, and love having you on the show, on our first show, on our maiden primetime.
I think I am not allowed to show people circle jerking on my stream. I think that's going to be TOS. This is really fucking dangerous.
So let's talk a little bit about this. We both came from Fox back in the day, and you know, this whole idea of this not only the Pride Month that Fox is now promoting and doing, but this whole thing about the family, the trans family, where the young girl said that she was a boy, but she told her mom at 2 years old with her eyes. She wasn't able to talk yet, but with her eyes, the mom says. What's going on over at Fox?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I've done stories on trans kids, and I actually know somebody. We have a couple trans people in my own family, and one of them was male to female. And the male to female person says that they knew at a very, very young age that they were supposed to be a girl. And traditionally, if you look at the history of transgender, gender dysphoria, it affects mostly, almost exclusively, little boys who think that they're actually girls. Now, the stats show that 70% of those kids will grow out of it if left alone, if you don't interfere.
That deeply, deeply upset Chico. Chico's having nightmares. God damn, Megyn Kelly. So, I'm assuming there's going to be a source on this one, right? That's not just statements being made.
But not all of them will. So there's room for some reporting on this. There is room.
Okay, so just to be clear, what you just said out loud was the majority of trans people are boys who think they're girls, and that almost 70% of them, if left untreated, will grow out of that phase. That's what she... So boys who think they're girls are different than boys who are feminine, or boys who want to play dress up, or boys who may want to put on makeup, or boys who may want to wear a dress. These are very different things. The source is literally Kenneth Zucker. Wow.
Room for reporting on how to identify what's real, what's not, how to be supportive, how not to do anything drastic until you know, all that stuff, okay? The problem is the Fox News Channel mission is not to do reports that sound like MSNBC, right? The Fox News Channel mission is to make sure that they include the context that gets ignored by all of the other stations. And in 2022 in particular, we know that there's a lot more to this story, and it is irresponsible to put it.
Wow. I feel so bad for the trans relatives of Megyn Kelly that she just like invoked in order to spew this. Because this piece that she's talking about, the Raising Ryland one, it was a surprisingly good piece by Fox News. And yes, the individual in question was saying that they knew that they were trans, I believe from the age of 5, similar to what Blair White has said before. She knew that she was trans at a very, very young age. Now, the other thing in this like fear-mongering, and we're probably going to get to a lot more hardcore versions of it when I put on Jordan Peterson's latest scurvy screed, but the fear-mongering involved in this is to consistently make you think that kids, they're stupid. Kids are just, they're little dum-dums, okay? They have dum-dum brains and they don't know what they want or like, and they're just little dum-dums running around doing dum-dum things. You've seen them eat sand and dirt because they're dum-dums. And so because of that, if they tell you something like, Mummy, I think I'm a boy, they're probably just going through a phase. It's probably a phase, and we have to prevent doctors from possibly doing things that will be irreversible and destroy their lives forever. And we're going to now not bring up the stats, the figures, the science, or anything behind this. We're not going to talk about how every major American medical association, and again, every major American medical association agrees with the fact that gender dysphoria is real and people who seek it should be given medical treatment if they so want to be able to try and alleviate it. That's the broad consensus of the scientific community.
On the air like this as a celebration without flagging for the parents out there who are going through this, the significant downsides of jumping onto this without making sure you're in that very, very small percentage of cases where this might...
Okay, by the way, for children who aren't undergoing puberty yet, like, they aren't doing things to them. It's not like if a 5-year-old says, I think I'm a boy, and then all of a sudden it's like, can you refer to me as he? Is that wrong? Is that too much for you, Megyn Kelly? Because that would be the extent of it most likely at that age. I mean, puberty blockers are given to you before you start going through puberty. And then once you're going through puberty, you continue to take them. You don't get bottom surgery. Like that's another thing that they keep lying about. I like, what would be the horrors and atrocities of validating your kid's gender because they asked you to?
This gender dysphoria might actually be a thing. And the trope of I'd rather have a dead, daughter than a live son, or the other way around. And it's like, that's a very dangerous trope because this is used by the LGBTQ activists to shame parents who know about that 70% statistic, that generally if I stay out of it, my kid's going to outgrow this. And in many cases, they just turn...
It's not to shame people. It's reflecting upon the facts that it helps alleviate the suicidal ideation that is associated with gender dysphoria. And to explain it so that people don't manipulate those stats and try to say, well, there's something inherently wrong with being trans because look at how high the suicide rates are for trans youth. And it's like that's because of social stigma. When you remove the barriers and you remove the social stigma, these numbers plummet. Their quality of life goes up. You don't actually care about the kids. You just hate trans people.
Not to be gay. It's like this is a weird form of conversion therapy by default.
Oh my God.
And so
Holy
to not
shit.
Flag the significant downsides of what happens to these kids when they're put on puberty blockers.
Reverse conversion therapy. Fuck. We're already there.
When they're put on cross-gender hormones. By the way, when that's done to girls, they're sterile. They can't have children anymore. And you could go down the list. is irresponsible to their mission. I mean, I don't expect any of the mainstream press to do it. I really don't. And
no, they are reversible. I mean, yes, there can be side effects and there can be instances of that happening, but that is not a common occurrence. It's like any medication you take or any medical treatment you seek, like Viagra, you know, the stuff to give old men hard penises, that stuff. It can cause heart palpitations. It can cause heart attacks. It can cause cardiac arrest, and it can cause strokes. So if someone's like, well, should I take Viagra because I want to make my pee-pee hard and I want to have sex? Would you then say like, oh, well, I mean, have you seen what this could potentially do to you? I mean, you could literally die. You could die if you take that Viagra. So yeah, I mean, that's just, it's abhorrent for me to even suggest that you try it. I mean, after all, let's just get the stuff off the market. It's dangerous.
although they should. In 2022, we know enough that they should.
Well, you know,
but I am surprised to see Fox News not doing it at all.
Conservative social media is up in arms, and
Fun fact: the risks associated with HRT for trans women are comparable with birth control for cis women. Interesting.
I think you and I would agree with this. We don't care if, as an adult, who you sleep with, who you want to wake up next to, who you want to dress like. I care less. It's when the children, and we've seen this push by teachers who are pushing this on children. We see libs of TikTok exposing so many teachers who.
Oh my God! Of course, like fucking any pushback. You're gonna stand up for trans family members here, or are you going to accept that they're just lying, just straight up lying right now? And the fucked up thing about the libs of TikTok and the never-ending saga of it, and the fact that the right just loves using them as an example of like there's now this trans ideology indoctrination going on, is the people, like when you actually watch a lot of the clips, even the ones that are supposed to be the really bad ones, like sometimes it's the most wholesome shit in the world. I feel so bad for those teachers to now have been labeled as groomers just because they're like, over the course of the pandemic, I realized that I was trans and I began to transition, and I'm so happy that I was able to approach my students and tell them I would prefer for you to refer to me as she, her. I'm a woman, and they all were very, very supportive, and they will now call me she, her from now on. That's it. And the label will be like, teacher grooming students into trans ideology, and you're like, what the fuck are you? This is so fucked up. Like it's a very wholesome statement, clip, and thing that happened, a very happy moment in someone's life, and you've taken that, and now you've tried to like destroy their lives, their careers, their reputation.
You know what? I came out to my third grade, our second grade kids, and another stat, Megan, and this is where the rubber meets the road, and I hate using those terms, but I just saw a statistic that in the last year,
Wait, did he said seventh grade? Do you have a problem with the teacher saying, by the way, can you refer to me as she, her when you talk about it? Like if you reference me, can you say she, her instead of he, him? You have a problem with that? Like what, let's take for an example here, just for 1 second, okay? There is a cis man who's a teacher, okay? And for some reason, people keep calling that teacher a her. He does not look like a woman. He does not present as a woman. He is not a woman. He does not identify as a woman, but they keep calling him she, her. And he wants to tell them, hey, could all of you stop calling me she? I'm not a she. If you want to talk to me or reference me, you can say, Mr. Man, or you can say he, him. Would you have a problem with that? Would that be an issue for you? Or is that gender ideology? Is suddenly that indoctrination of kids?
The rate of children identifying as trans has doubled than it was just 5 years ago. And it may be because...
I don't know if you know this, but back in the day, the rate of left-handed people, those who identify as being left-handed, was very low. And at that time, we used to punish people who were left-handed. Sometimes they would get literal slaps on the wrist when they were kids when they tried using their left hand, because we saw it as a sign of the devil and sinful, and we shouldn't allow this abomination to exist. And then we stopped because we realized it was ludicrous to do this, and suddenly the number went all the way up to 12% and has stayed like that. And the line just goes like this. But you can see the line starting here, being very, very low, and then all of a sudden going up to 12, and then going like that. Because again, we stopped shaming them into existence, into not existing. It's like, that's, I could not think of a more striking example of that. There wasn't left-handed ideology going on back then. There wasn't suddenly a whole bunch of people trying to indoctrinate kids into being left-handed, part of the big left, all of a sudden they were showing up at schools and whispering and being like, did you know you can actually write with your other hand? Yes, it's the devil's hand. Try it, kids. Soon you will all be left-handed.
because of some of this. And maybe these kids, it's not that they're finally realizing who they are, what they want to be. It's they think it's the right, it's more acceptable, and it's what they should be doing, not what they really are.
Yeah, I know. I shouldn't talk about the left-hand mafia.
That's what's so disturbing. When I first started covering these issues, because I've seen it in my own family, I was very kind and open-minded and sure to point out to people that this is a real thing in a small amount of cases, and we shouldn't be bullying people who suffer from this. What's happened since then, Eric, is we've lost our minds on this.
Jesus. That's so sad. That's so sad for the family members. I'm sure they're probably like screaming out to be like, what are you doing? But hey, this is the same thing that we're hearing, not just from Megyn Kelly, again, from libs. Bill Maher. Bill Maher had an entire segment, which Jimmy Dore proudly echoed, where it's this whole like, look, I'm an ally, okay? I'm for trans rights. It's just getting out of hand. It's too much. Y'all are getting way too uppity, and you need to take it down a couple pegs, okay? You've lost your minds. It's out of control. There's more people identifying now as LGBTQ+ than ever before, and this is a problem, apparently. And it's this whole thing where it's like, yeah, I'm an ally, okay? I'm for trans rights or whatever, but to a point. To a point, okay? Like, now it's just beyond the pale. What, we're supposed to be giving kids gender-affirming care? The same thing that we've done for cis kids? For as long as we've been giving that kind of care? No, too much, too much.
This issue, it's become a political issue almost. It's like the politics of it have taken over the actual issue of it, to where now, you know, if somebody's calling their child a baby instead of a baby, it's going to be some far left woke progressive who's got some political agenda they're working out on their kid. And it's
okay, yeah, that's first off, I don't know if that's happening. If it is, okay, whatever. At the same time, that's way less extreme than fucking gender reveal parties. I'm sorry, straight people, cis people. Like, what the ever-loving fuck? they keep one-upping those motherfucking things. It's like, okay, how are we gonna do this? How about dad runs through the top of the house, jumps off the roof, lands on a pink balloon, bounces off with a whole bunch of fireworks that he fires out of guns and rockets at a tree that has a giant vulva, and then the whole thing explodes and it'll say it's a girl. Hell yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really taking it far enough there. We got to kick things up a notch.
Abusive. And now what we're doing is hiding facts from parents who have an
How is that abusive? How is the idea of they be abusive? Where you're like, I don't know what the gender of my kid is yet. I'm going to let my kid decide because that's the way things kind of should be. I'm not going to assume that in the interim. Like, I still, even if that is happening, if there's a phenomenon, I don't see how that, like, how does that bother you? Like, what does that have to do with your life, your day-to-day life? It doesn't involve you in any way, shape, or form. That's you being like, I don't like the way you're parenting. You have to call your child a he or she immediately. That's the only way that can be. Yeah, I'm not even really comfortable with this whole they-them thing, because you know what, I agree trans people exist, but it's basically trans people experience gender dysphoria. It's a medical condition, and once that medical condition has been resounded, then they can carry on their normal lives as they should have the right to. That's the extent of my allyship here.
Absolute role in this. Teachers who have their own agenda trying to push it on children when it comes to sex, when it comes to gender.
Okay, when does that I assume if this was happening, we would have video footage of this, because the right would never shut the fuck up about it. Like, I assume we would have a video of a teacher being like, hey, I want to teach you all about doggy style, and then I'm going to teach you about gay sex. Yes, the gay doggy style afterwards. And then every one of you has to be trans. All of you. I want you all to go by neo-pronouns. Yes, and you have to make them up. Not even neo-pronouns we've heard. I'm not talking about Z's and Zers. I'm talking about really weird long ones that no one will understand. I demand this happens right now. Could you imagine? Libs of TikTok would explode. The account would just cease to exist. Like, it would break the internet.
Things that they should not be coming anywhere near. And that one middle school teacher working out her issues because she feels safe with her sixth graders.
Hey, the big room, thank you. And by the way, could we just remind everybody that this is indoctrination? This is propaganda. That's what this is. Like, we are flooded with heterosexual propaganda all fucking day in our lives. It is what is seen as normal. Like, and then if there is a drag queen reading stories to a kid, it's like, oh shit, that's highly offensive. I know I've been like, beating this nonstop this month because this has been a particularly bad pride for the amount of hate that the queer community is getting. But check this out. The tilted kilt. This is a family-friendly location in America where you can bring your kids to. And I know some of you may be thinking, well, no, people don't bring their kids to the Tilted Kilt. I mean, it's just that's for the men, all right? That's for when the husband's had a hard day. He just wants to have a couple beers, maybe a Guinness, and then enjoy the sights and sounds of the football game. The Tilted Kilt, yes, is a place where you bring your kids. Here's children being brought to the Tilted Kilt. Here's someone seating the table. Here are multiple videos. Took the kids to Tilted Kilt for lunch. This is blank at the Tilted Kilt. On top of which, a teacher responded to this by saying, oh yeah, I teach kids at school, and they've brought in little coloring page. The Tilted Kilt has coloring page books that they give to kids. Yeah. And guess what? The LGBTQ plus community is not doing a crusade against the NFL, the NBA, Hooters, or even the Tilted Kilt. I'm just trying to point out the hypocrisy. You don't see gay people on the other end being like, these are groomers, this is grooming, this is pedophilia, how dare they, this is fucking disgusting, you know? But this is seen as normal. This is completely normalized in society. And guess what? I don't have a problem with people who want to dress this way or look this way, or people who find this attractive. That's not the point of this. The point is, this one is fine, but if you read books to a kid fully clothed, but you happen to be a man dressed as a woman in drag, that is apparently child abuse. That is grooming and pedophilia. But bringing your kids to this is wholesome. This is wholesome family entertainment. Completely normal. Totally fine.
Therapist. Don't work out your issues on my kid. In fact, if my kid brings any issues of his own to you, you bring them to me. I didn't hire you for that. I hired you to teach math. That's it. This woman's not well enough to be in front of these kids. So we've crossed over to this point in society where it's getting really dangerous because tolerance.
It's getting dangerous because of people like you. Honestly, people like Megyn Kelly. This is absolutely revolting. This whole segment, it turned from bad to fucking disgusting. Getting to this, like the fear-mongering on display, getting people to start thinking there are actual teachers who are trying to teach your kids about sex acts. Yes, I don't really know the difference between sex and sexuality, but apparently they're just trying to teach them sex acts. That's what I'm led to believe. And then don't even get me started on the gender ideology. You know, there's more children now that apparently are identifying as LGBTQ plus than ever before. This is a problem, and it must be stopped. It must be stopped immediately. It's only a problem if you see that as being inherently bad, you know? It's only a problem if you think that's a bad thing. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we beseech thee to smite down our enemies. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble court jesters, here to amuse you. To our lords, Trevor R., we give thanks for this spit of land for us to eke out this meager existence. To our knights, Merid, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Ellie Leslie, Alex P., Brandon, Words Greenwood, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Val 9000, Jenna Tall, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Yanis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our flag in a veil, and we salute you, our friends.